This week's Parsha is, in addition to being Vayakel Perkudei, is Parsha Chodesh. We're going to take out a second Sefer Torah and read from the book of Exodus chapter 12 and read about the mitzvahs that were given to the Jewish people to prepare them to leave Mitzrayim. And of course, we always read this the Shabbos of or the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh Nisan to get ourselves ready, to prepare ourselves to know how we're supposed to prepare our korban pesach and our matzahs and our moror and so forth. Okay, so we're getting closer. Yes. So in the Haftorah for Parsha Chodesh, we read from the book of Yecheskel, and from Yecheskel chapter 46. And in Sefer Yecheskel, the reason why we read about this particular Haftorah for Parsha Chodesh is because it talks about the Jewish people coming to the temple on Rosh Chodesh. And it's about the avoda that the Jewish people will do on Rosh Chodesh Nisan when the third temple is dedicated. It talks about the Yom HaChodesh. And so that's really the connection that it has. It talks about a future time when we'll come to worship Hashem on Rosh Chodesh Nisan when the third temple is built. So that's the connection. But I'd like us to get a very valuable lesson from this Haftorah that has to do with another theme that may be very important for us to bear in mind during this season of Yom Tov. The pasuk in Yecheskel that we're going to read in the Haftorah is Uvevo am haaretz lifnei Hashem b'moadim, that when the Jewish people, who are known as the Am Haaretz, which just means the general populace, not the exceptional people, just everybody. Amcha, right? Exactly. When everyone comes to the temple on the festivals, Habad derech shar tzafon lihishtachavot, then if a person comes in through the northern gate to bow down to Hashem, Yetzei derech sha'ar negev, that person should not leave via the northern gate, he should leave via the southern gate. Behabad derech sha'ar negev, Yetzei derech sha'ar tzafona. And if a person came in through the southern gate, they should leave the temple from the northern gate. Lo yashuv derech hashar asher bavo ki nechacho yetzei. He should never leave in the same way that he came in, because rather he should go to the opposite place from whence he came. Now the pasuk doesn't tell us why. This is the policy for people who come to the temple. Comes along the Talmud and tells us that this has practical applications in a non-temple Jewish existence. This is a Gemara in Brachos Daf Samach Beis, and it says, Amar Rabbi Chelbo Amar Rav Huna, Hanichnas lebeit hakneset lihitpalel, mutar la'asoto kapandaria. That if a person comes into a synagogue to pray, he's allowed to make it a shortcut. Now, the previous statement of the Gemara was that you're never allowed to make a synagogue into a kapandaria. A kapandaria is the term used to denote a shortcut, meaning that if it's raining outside and you want to come into the shul in order to get out of the rain, or the easiest way of getting from one point A to point B is to walk through the synagogue to the sanctuary, then that's not permitted. If you notice, it's very tempting sometimes at the BAYT to use a sanctuary as a shortcut, because this is a big facility, and sometimes when you're on this part of the building, the easiest way to get through is to go through the Turk Beis Medrash to get to the exit. But you're not allowed to, al pi halacha, you're not allowed to use the sanctuary as a shortcut. You have to go through either the Rebbetzin Judy Town Hall or through a hallway if you want to get to the back of the building. That's the halacha that the Gemara says. However, the exception is as follows. What if you've already entered into the sanctuary and you're davening there? So then it says in the Gemara, you're permitted to make it a kapandaria, which means you can go through a different exit from the one that you came in. Now the Shulchan Aruch takes it even further, but where is the basis for this? It's from this book of Yecheskel, which says, Uvevo am haaretz lifnei Hashem b'moadim, that when the Jewish people would come to God's temple on the festivals, they would go out, they would exit through the opposite gate from whence they came in. So the Shulchan Aruch codifies this, and it says the same thing. It's in Siman Kuf Nun Aleph, which is the laws of Beit HaKnesset. And it says, Hayu LaBayt HaKnesset Shnei Ptachim, that if the shul has two doorways, Lo Yikanes B'Petach Zeh La'asoto Derech Latzeit B'Petach HaSheni, then you're not permitted to walk into one door to use it as a shortcut to go out the other side. L'Katzer Darko, to give yourself a shortcut. V'im Haya Haderech Over Kodem Shenivne Beit HaKnesset Mutar, but if this pathway was there from before, and then you built a shul on the site of where you were normally, there was a pathway, then it's okay. If you didn't come into the shul in order to use it as a shortcut, then you're allowed to exit the other doorway. As we just said, you're allowed to leave through the other entrance. And on this, the Mishnah Berurah, quoting the Achronim, says, take a look, he says, Tzarach lomar mitzvah l'misha nichnas. It's not just that it's permissible to make it into a shortcut, it's a mitzvah to make it into a shortcut. And the Gemara brings, says Mishnah Berurah, the Gemara brings it from our pasuk from Yechezkel. And the question is why. So he says in the last few words, quoting the Ran, he says, V'hatam kidei sheyihiye nireh kemechavev. The reason is because you're showing that you're endearing the mitzvah. How are you endearing the mitzvah? He doesn't say. But it says that you're endearing the mitzvah of showing your love for the Beit HaKnesset. I guess maybe the simplest way of understanding it is that you want to cross the span of the sanctuary. You don't want to just get in and get out the same way you came in, but you want to show how beloved the sanctuary is for you, so you want to cross and traverse the entire span of the sanctuary. But that you can only do if you've walked into the sanctuary to pray. And then at that point you should show how important it is to you, so if you come in one way, go out the other way. In the ladies section upstairs, you can do that, right? Can you go in from both ways?
Yeah.
Okay, so that might be a virtuous thing to do, yes?
I had heard that it's good to go out a different door than you come in because you're a different person, because spiritually you're raised from the spirit.
Oh, that's a beautiful idea. That could be a good, nice reason. Okay. That's a very nice idea. Hold on just a second. I want to, because we're going to run out of time, I want us to take a look at a commentary of the Chassid Yavitz, who lived during the Spanish Inquisition in Spain. And he wrote a commentary to Pirkei Avos, a very famous commentary to Pirkei Avos. And on the Mishnah, which says that you should make your house a meeting place for the sages, he goes into a discussion about what a person's approach to Torah study should be. He says that there are other disciplines that a person gets involved with in life that he can visit periodically, but doesn't have to be constantly immersed in that endeavor. So, for example, if you like tennis, you don't have to play tennis every day. You can play tennis whenever it's convenient for you. But he says, but Torah study is not that way. And he writes, and we'll start from the underlined portion, L'chein hisir yiyeh beitecha beit va'ad. He says, your house has to be a meeting place for Torah study. Why? Because lo yaspik lecha v'shetishma divreim pam b'chutz pam b'rechovos ve'etzel kol pina ta'arov. He says it's not sufficient that whenever it's convenient for you, you'll go to a shir and listen to when there's a rabbi that you hear is coming to give a shir. He says you have to bring it to your home and make your home a place where there's a constancy of Torah study. Create an environment so that the Torah study is constant in your home. He says, but at the same time, we're cognizant of the fact that by creating a constancy of Torah study, this could also create a disadvantage or a liability as well. And what is that? That people tend to get bored and disgusted with things that they do on a daily routine. You get tired of it. It becomes tired after a while. Mitzvat anashim melumada v'diyuk v'yavo lavoz hamilamed v'hatorah atzma. And a person could come eventually to reject the teacher and reject, right? If you come to shiur every Tuesday, listen to the same guy, week in and week out, it becomes boring, and you're not going to, it's no longer interesting, and you'll eventually reject the teacher, and you'll reject the Torah study as well. So therefore, and in this vein, Amru Zal lama talmid chacham domeh lifnei ha'ma'aretz l'kiton shel zahav. Our sages therefore understand the psychology of this, and they therefore say that when a regular person first meets a Talmud Chacham, the first encounter, the Talmud Chacham is like a golden vase. Wow, such a special person. Diber imo domeh l'kiton shel kesef. After one conversation with the Talmud Chacham, he starts, you imagine him now only as a silver vase. Okay? And then nehane mimenu domeh likli cheres hanishbar she'ein lo takana. And then all you have to do is give something to the Talmud Chacham, benefit him in some way. I did a favor for him, and then of course he becomes like an earthenware vessel that breaks and is not even worth fixing anymore. So in other words, we tend to deprecate those things that there's a sense of familiarity. Familiarity breeds contempt. That's the reason why that's the title of the shiur today. And if you skip down to the next section, which is lined, he says, Ulazu hasiba tziva Hashem yisborach. And that's the reason why Hashem tells us in Sefer Yechezkel in the Haftorah, Uvevo am haaretz lo yetze derech hashar v'gomen. When you come into the temple, don't go out the same way that you came in. Mix it up a little bit. Create a little variety in your life to keep it interesting. That's the idea. Ki hikbid Hashem yisborach shelo yira hashar bet pe'amim pen yishve be'enav l'shar beito v'kirot habayit l'kirotav. God doesn't want you to treat the temple doorways as the doorways of your own house. Sometimes people treat the synagogue as their living room. And that's what we're trying to change. We're trying to change that culture of treating the sanctuary as your living room, right? Come, sit down, let's chapa shmooze, right? That's the idea of walking into the synagogue through one entrance and leaving through the other entrance, is that you don't treat the synagogue as your living room, as a place that you become too familiar with, and it no longer has its special quality. So, and therefore he says, and that's why at the beginning of the pasuk it says that visiting the temple was done periodically, because we know that when things are done with constancy, they become less important, they become more trivial to people. Next, we skip to the next line. Avol hanasi shahasagato sichlit lo yitztarech lazeh. However, if a person is not the amcha, if a person is not just the general populace, but he's the prince of the Jewish people, he's a spiritual dignitary, a leader of the Jewish people, then he does not need this requirement that he has to leave from a different door from which he came into the temple. Because avol kol sheyosif lahatmid godel ha'ahava b'libo v'lachen yetzei baderach asher bavo. A nasi, a truly spiritually great person, can leave in the same way that he came in, because the more constancy that he applies to spiritual endeavors, the more he gets into it. The more passion he has for the Torah study and the mitzvahs that he's engaging in, because he has a spiritual appreciation of the quality of this thing that's enhancing his life. Zeh haya avon ma'aseh ha'egel. And this idea of familiarity breeding contempt was really the root of the sin of the golden calf, he says. Shahaya ha'ohel bitocham ad shema'asuvo. That the tent of the divinity was right in their midst. And therefore they said, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Right? And therefore they felt that God was no longer that special. The Amru Aselanu Elohim, and that's why they said, come, make for us a God. We'll be in control of this God, because if God can live in our midst, we can have a familiarity with that God. Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom hirgish bazeh v'natalo et ha'ohel michutz l'machaneh harchek min ha'machaneh. And that's why when Moshe Rabbeinu comes down after the sin of the golden calf with the second tablets, what does he do? What's the first thing that he does? He pitches his tent outside the camp of the Jewish people to remind the Jewish people that it was that familiarity with divinity that caused you to have this sense of liberty with God, to make your own calf after your own image, of your own design. And that's why in the same Mishnah that talks about making your house a meeting place for the sages, the very next line he says is Vehevi mit'abek ba'afar ragleihem, that you should cleave to the dust of their feet, which means treat the sages with reverence, because you will have this familiarity with them once you open up your home to them, and therefore it'll be necessary for you to reinforce your regard and reverence for them, and that's why the Mishnah has to remind you of that idea. So what does this have to do with Parsha Chodesh? Rav Rivlin, who has this beautiful sefer on the Haftorahs, Rav Rivlin from Kerem B'Yavne, he says something very interesting. He says this is the time of year when our annual cycle begins anew as a people. It's the spring, it's a time of renewal, it's a time to refresh our feelings about our Torah, about being Jewish, about serving Hashem. So if we're a Nasi, then we don't need to constantly create new devices to make the Torah exciting. We can afford to go out with the same door from whence we came. But we have to acknowledge that there's a bit of amcha in all of us. And it's therefore necessary for us to take advantage of the change of scenery, the change of seasons, the change of holidays, and really try to appreciate that the changing calendar of Klal Yisrael was structured specifically to mix things up, to give us a sense of variety. And it applies to how we're going to celebrate Pesach this year. If we're just going to do it the same way that we've been doing it year in and year out, with the same Haggadahs and the same Pshetulach, the same Divrei Torah that Uncle Harry's been saying over for the last 20 years at our Seder tables, and nothing's changed, so it's going to become stale. And we're going to lose our reverence and our excitement about Pesach. We got to learn how to mix it up. We have to create, we have to prepare and make sure that we have new Divrei Torah, new Haggadahs, something new at our Seder which is going to create excitement. And just as this season is a new season and brings new life to our people, we have to do the same in the way that we celebrate the season of newness, the season of renewal. So that's the message. Make sure that when we come into the shul, we leave from a different exit to create variety in our service, and let that be a paradigm for this entire season of Yom Tov. Have a great day, everybody.